Welcome to the Evolve to Win show today. I'm so excited that we have my dear friend and just someone who is amazing in our community in Southwest Florida, Christin Collins. Thanks for being with us, Christin.
Thank you for having me, Heather.
So Christin is the System Director of Health and Wellness for Lee Health. And anybody who lives in Southwest Florida is very familiar with Lee Health. And one of the reasons, first of all, Christin, I've wanted to have you on this show for quite some time now, but one of the reasons that I chose right now is because I think this conversation is so relevant as you lead the charge for health and wellness for such a massive healthcare organization. I want to really tap into how you're helping people take charge of health and wellness in such a crazy, turbulent time. So, Christin, let me just start off by asking you to share a little bit about your background. How did you get to be where you are today?
Oh, wow. Well, again, Heather, thank you so much for having me and your bright light that you shine and helping us all navigate some of the challenges and some of the inspirations that you are able to help us with. I found myself being a fundraiser for the hospital who went through my own physical health transformation. And it was through that passion of my own personal experience that I then shifted over to start the conversation along with some other amazing people at Lee Health and to navigate how do we address health and well-being and health promoting in a reparative healthcare setting. So I've been at it for about 5 years now, and the timing of the virus is actually really opening some doors in new ways.
Oh, I can only imagine it must. I mean, your role was, in my perception, critical in the past before this hit. And yet now I look at it and say, oh my gosh, thank God you guys were so in tune with health and wellness that you already had this entire department set up so that you could go to work. It's incredible.
Well, thank you. And what the challenge, the lag indicator in hindsight, looking back, was that our physicians, our clinicians are not trained for health promoting. They're trained in reparative medicine, and that's also how we're paid.
So let's talk to me a little bit about reparative medicine, because I think maybe the average bear, myself included, I have not ever kind of studied that term, and yet I know exactly what you're talking about. But tell me a little bit about what you mean by reparative.
Sure. And just to make it simple for today's conversation, we would be supporting the aftermath. We would be receiving you because you had an issue or a problem. So we were repairing whatever was wrong. Yeah. And a holistic approach to healthcare, or through the lens of health and well-being, would be just the opposite. How do we keep you from needing that reparative work? Because you're always going to have traumas, you're going to have the need for healthcare. But how do you enter your experience in healthcare, your surgery, for example, in optimal health and wellness, so that you have the best outcomes and the shortest lengths of stay, and it just better outcomes in general.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so rather than waiting until the symptoms show up and treating somebody who's already ill, the idea is getting in front of it and being proactive and helping people become healthy and do what they need to do to be proactive and preventative. Is that right?
100%. And also, educating folks on they own their own health. Over 80% of chronic disease is preventable and or reversible. And when I found that statistic out, I'm like, why are we not all talking about not getting a chronic disease? Not how are we medicating, or how are we operating on, or how are we curing a chronic disease? We don't need to go there often. So really shifting the lens. But when you look at how we're trained, that is not the training. We look at a symptom, like you mentioned, and then we repair it or fix it or address it. And then how are we paid? And that's the same way. We don't get paid to keep you well. We get paid when you come see us. So there's a whole shift into value-based care through the lens of population health. But we are in the early stages of that. And actually what this virus has done is catapulted the conversation about well-being, especially for the frontline healthcare provider. There's incredible concentration right now on loving on our frontline staff and how are we supporting their well-being, talking about social determinants of health, What food do they have at home? How are they caring for their children at home? Was there a job loss within the family that's changing their financial structure? What is their stress level? Are they getting any sleep? We're having holistic conversations, starting with our frontline staff, that have just escalated and make me very happy.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. I'm so glad that you have that resource available for your frontline staff. And just a quick question about what you're seeing out there right now. How are they doing right now? I know that we are still in Lee County on the maybe we're not there yet, right? And we expect that unfortunately we're going to see a stronger population coming into the hospital there. But how are people holding up in your perception?
Sure. There's stress for sure. And I think the continued, all the new implementations that are coming at them by the hour, you set up a protocol because we don't have the history in this global pandemic. So the protocols are changing constantly. So there's just moving parts all the time. It's very stressful for them. On the flip side, they are feeling so much love and support, and they are rallying against a common enemy, and the whole community is rallying against a common enemy, and the love and support that they're feeling is like never before. It's really put them at the forefront of our appreciation and our gratitude, as we all just take that deep breath. So it's been a bittersweet experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know there's just so much gratitude pouring out from so many people, all over the globe. Is there anything that we can do to support them right now? Like what are a couple of things that maybe others have done that have been so well received, or ideas maybe that people haven't done yet that we might be able to do as a community?
Well, thank you. And I've been able to share this under the lens of health and well-being for the past 2 weeks now. The number one thing that we can all do to support our frontline folks is to stay home. Yeah. And the whole premise of self-care, which has been my mantra and my passion for years, it's like own your own health, take care of you. That is so important right now, because the more folks who stay contained and don't pick up the virus, or if they do, don't spread the virus, and the less pressure we put on the front line as we're trying to prepare, and we're doing an amazing job preparing, but there's a surge that's going to be coming, and the smaller that surge is, the better it will be for our frontline team. So that's number one. Okay. Number two, the outpouring, especially now through connectivity, social media, sharing that love and that outpouring. They're seeing it, they're feeling it. We are experiencing so much more engagement from our community through social media. So that's a real positive. So there's lots of ways to engage socially while staying physically distant. So that's really cool. And then the third thing I would say is to stay tuned. I've been in conversations this morning with lots of great community leaders who are trying to rally the community and align it to support local businesses and the frontline workers. So this week, I think we're going to see some initiatives launch that are going to be very impactful that people can plug into. And I'll send you info on that if and when that launches this week.
Excellent. And what we will do is, as I get that information from you, I will add it to the comments within this thread in LinkedIn. So that if you're following this and you want to do something special for our healthcare workers to just show them the love, we'll find out ways to do that. Now, is there any special social media page where people could share their thoughts, their feelings, or is there a hashtag that they should use, or how do we really, like, for the average person who's sitting there and they're like, I want to do something, who can they send it to? How can they? Yeah.
Sure. So thank you for that question. In the past 3 weeks, we've been able to boot up on our Lee Health social media sites tools, tips, resources that are rolling out multiple times an hour. So there's so many ways to engage on the Lee Health website, and also to receive information on how to stay well during this pandemic. So it's a two-way street. You can show your love, and you can receive love, and help get through this. Hashtag wise, my favorite's hashtag stay home. That's like, it doesn't get any more simple than that. Really, in any decision that you're making, is this worth risking, never mind me receiving this virus, but if I'm asymptomatic, I don't even know I have it, am I exposing other people? That's really the lens. So the hashtag stay home is my favorite. Hashtag Lee Health Strong is great. There's also a wonderful hashtag going on right now, SWFL for Southwest Florida Strong. That's going on. So those are some ways that you can engage. And also not so much for engagement, but this just triggered for information. There is incredible uploading literally every hour on our Lee Health website with community resources and just up to the minute information. And I was able to guide somebody there yesterday. For example, telehealth right now is free to anybody. And a friend was having some anxiety over the unknown. And I just said, listen, go on the website, use these complimentary resources. Telehealth is free right now. Use United Way 211, plug in, and there's resources all over the place to help people. So another way for folks, your followers, to engage is to be able to guide people to that information.
Okay, so I love that you shared all that, especially throwing in the United Way 211. There are a lot of folks who may not be aware of that. I believe is that specific to Southwest Florida? Is that right?
You know what? I do not know that answer.
Okay. We're going to find out. We're going to put it in the comments, but I do know that United Way has a 211 phone number that you call. And I know this is true for Southwest Florida. I don't know if this is a national thing. So we'll find out. We'll update. But if you've got issues, so whether that's, difficulty paying your bills, maybe you need meals and you're stuck at home and can't get out, or you have a loved one who is, or a neighbor, 211 is a great resource to find out what other community organizations are out there to support you. And there's so many amazing community organizations that are there right now, and they are working super, super hard. So what is the website, the Lee Health website that they go to, for example, for telehealth?
Sure. leehealth.org.
Okay.
Very simply.
So let's talk for just a moment about telehealth, because I think this is really just incredible. There are so many people out there. I mean, honest to God, you have a sneeze, you have a cough, and you're like, oh my God, am I infected? Right? I mean, how many of us have you, Kristin? I have. I mean, gosh, because we're all so heightened right now in our awareness of this, and nobody wants to be infected and infect others. So doing telehealth, what does that even mean? Because I think most people have never experienced telehealth before.
Sure. And what's neat about this, if we're going to have a neat thing come out of a global pandemic, one of them is how this is catapulting many of us into modern society. I've barely ever connected virtually. And now this month, I'm on my computer many hours a day connecting in ways I never have. So telehealth is an incredible way to connect. And can be that initial primary care contact. Without having to physically connect. And then from there, you can get directive on, oh, yes, you do need to physically be seen, or here's a prescription, or here's another avenue that's virtual that can be a follow-up. So it's wonderful right now that it's complementary. And again, it's a catalyst. This moment is a catalyst to bring us to really how healthcare is going to start really being received and experienced in the future.
Can you imagine you go to your healthcare provider, but there's no waiting in line in an office with other people, and you can actually just be in your home comfortable, right? So is it actually a phone call? Is it a video chat? What is
it? Could be either. It could be either. Yeah. Okay. And I think what's neat too is that it then, when you want to talk about health and well-being and prevention, instead of waiting until you're chronic and then you have to come to the emergency department because you're acute, right? You're able to connect much more easily and more affordably, right now free, to be able to get in initially versus waiting until you escalate. So I think telehealth is not only where obviously we were heading anyway, but it's really a wonderful tool to be able to, you have a runny nose or whatever issue you were saying that you're getting nervous about, and then you can get that information while it's still a runny nose before it escalates.
Got it. Okay. It's funny, Kristin, you and I were talking in advance about what we're going to discuss on this interview. And so far we've discussed a whole bunch of things that were not even on the agenda. Of course, I'm not surprised by that at all, because we're just going to go with the flow here. But I think all this information so far has been incredibly helpful. If you agree, if you're listening live right now, send us a comment, give Kristin a like, share this with others, please. If you didn't realize that telehealth is available right now and is free, especially, please share that on your social media channels. Please help people to know, because there may be people out there who do not need to be clogging the system, so to speak, right now, but have real concerns. So what a great way to sort of, keep people at home and still care for them. All right. Love that. Now I'm totally going to switch gears on you and go toward more of like, okay, so I've known Kristin for years now, and we've worked together in different community organizations. And in fact, Kristin, I remember one of the really cool things that you did years ago. You invited a number of people into your home where we got to really learn about health and well-being, preventative care, whole food, plant-based diet, all of this amazing information that we learned so much about. I would like to ask you right now, when you think about the stress levels that are going on, they're just pervasive, right? And we all do different things. We display stress differently. What are some tips that you have for folks that are really practical if people are starting to feel like the stress is too much? So what do you recommend?
And what's so interesting is that this would have been a recommendation 2 months ago, before the pandemic was upon us, here in the United States. It's so basic and so simple. So I feel a little silly, sharing this, but take a deep breath. Mm-hmm. Everyone just needs to stop spinning and stop reacting and just pause. Mm-hmm. And I'm in a practice now, and it's only been about a year that I've been actively practicing sitting each day and taking some deep breaths and just being present. So now I'm having an easier time when I'm reacting to stress, that I can just take a deep breath and pause. And then I can decide, I want to go in the kitchen right now and I want a whole sleeve of Oreos, because Oreos are delicious. But thank goodness I don't even have Oreos in the house right now, because I would probably eat a sleeve. But I'm able to make healthier decisions holistically about my well-being because I'm pausing. And, there's a lot of joking going around about putting on a COVID-15, just like our freshman 15 in college, from all that stress eating. And between alcohol consumption and just junk food eating, that just is another added stressor when we start bombarding our bodies with foods that aren't healthy. So I think the baseline for stress is to take that deep breath.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just talk a little bit more about that, because I totally recognize why you are like, oh my gosh, I feel silly even saying this, because people are like, no, give me the good stuff. Like, tell me what I can really do. But I 100% agree with you. And I'm going to share the neurological reason. So if just hearing take a deep breath is not enough, let me tell you why it actually matters, right? Is because when we get into this stressed out mode and our cortisol levels start pumping, which is really, really bad, your immune system just like is trying to fight off your own stress, right? When that's all happening, we get into this fight or flight or freeze mechanism. So if and we all do it differently. So if you feel like you're just stuck and you can't do anything, that's the freeze mechanism. If you feel like you're just running so hard, right, that could be the flight, whatever. But I want to help you understand that when you actually stop and just breathe, you're actually getting oxygen back to the part of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. That's your thinking, your rational, your reasoning mind. And what happens is when we are stressed out, we actually lose access to that rational part of our brain. It's the prefrontal cortex right up there. If you don't have access to it, like Kristin said, you can make some bad decisions. I know I've made some really bad decisions already. We went to Costco and we bought not one, but 2 bags of this food that I've never even heard of before, called Pirate's Booty. Do you know what I'm talking about? They're like cheese curds or who knows what. Not one, but 2 bags of these. And I was like, we are clearly, like, we get home and I'm looking at what's in our cabinet. I'm like, bad decisions. Bad decisions are happening in the Christie household, right? So especially if you're going out shopping, like the planning starts in the shop, when you're shopping, although most of us aren't shopping anymore, which would be a good thing. But yeah, so we make bad decisions when we're in high stress. So if you're about to make a bad decision, stop and breathe, oxygenate, you get power back to that rational reasoning part of your brain. And now you will find yourself thinking more clearly. So for whatever it's worth, maybe you will not end up with a pirate's booty if you take Kristin's advice.
I'm so surprised. I like to know your opinion
that, I'm sure.
That's helpful.
Okay.
And Heather, may I elaborate on that just one second? Because I think another really important point of stress that everyone is feeling right now is the heightened lack of control.
Yeah.
And how incredibly scary it is because there's so many moving parts so quickly. There isn't a human on this planet that's not affected by this. And we're not in control. So I think the other point I want to make, besides taking a deep breath, is also to let go of trying to control things that you actually never had control over in the first place. We just thought we did. And to be accepting and sit in the discomfort of the letting go and the lack of control. That will help you with your stress a lot, because there's a lot of factors going on right now that we have no control over. And the only thing we have control of is how we react. So that pause, again, will help with that.
I absolutely love that. And especially if you happen to be high on the control meter, I see you out there. If you are one of those who actually has to have control, it's even that much more difficult. So any ideas for how to actually let that go? I mean, breathing is definitely good, right? So you just breathe through it. But I love what you said there is the only thing that we have control over right now, truly, possibly the only thing we have control over is how we react or how we respond to whatever's coming at us right now. So Kristin, how do you do it? How do you stay grounded, even in spite of the lack of control?
Here's the great news, Heather, is that you don't have to like go climb a mountain in Tibet or go get a PhD in letting go. It's as easy as being aware of that. And it's like a light switch. It's a lens. Yeah. And I came to a head in my life's journey where I thought I was very in control of a lot of things. And I also was very judgmental of how other people were doing things. And my gosh, why aren't they doing it this way? Because this is the way I would do it. And obviously that would be the best way. Mm-hmm. So it was about 1.5 years ago that I realized I'm not in control of that. I'm not in charge of that. The only thing I'm in charge of is myself, knowing and liking myself, being comfortable with me, and then how I react to other people. And how I react to other people is with curiosity and love and acceptance and differentiation and non-judgment. So my advice, quote unquote, is be aware that you're not in control of other people's destiny. And as you're seeing other people make decisions during this pandemic, they're on their own journey. It's not for you to guide that. You be you. You own you.
I've seen many people post comments in different groups that I'm in social media. These are people who are really, really positive generally, like they're leaders, they're leading the charge. And I've heard a number of them say that they are struggling with their reaction to how other people are doing this right now. You know, like they're doing their thing, they're leading, they're staying positive, but they're really struggling when they feel like others out there are making bad decisions. And you talked about judgment and being judgmental. And I think that's maybe like the direction that I want to go right now, because I think, and I'm not immune to it. And I don't know if you are either. I catch myself constantly. I even was talking to my mother yesterday and I caught myself, saying, I can't believe that. And then I fill in the blank that so-and-so said this or did this or thought this or quoted this statistic or whatever. And as I heard myself saying it, I'm like, of course I can. It's perfect. It's perfect that's just where they are. That's what they see. That's how they've filtered this. And it's what they believe. So it's perfect. It doesn't have to match my belief system. Tell me a little bit about how you frame that. How do you get yourself to the place where you can let someone just be who they are and not suffer from that like ultimate stress that we put ourselves through by making someone wrong.
So, and I too will catch myself starting to go down a path, but again, it's a lens. And the great news is that this way of being is actually addictive. It's very freeing to not be in charge of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when I realized, oh my goodness, I'm sitting here judging other people and how they're running their journey. And that's not for me to judge at all, because do I want someone else telling me how to live my life and who to be and what decisions to make? That never works. Actually, if you tell me what to do, I'll probably do the opposite just because you told me. So now being able to be curious about somebody else's decisions and then be a lighthouse in my own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I practice being myself, being comfortable with the decisions that I'm making, not so that others follow me or believe in me or like the way I'm doing it. I practice being comfortable with just being me in this present moment, because that's all I have. And who I might have been 10 minutes ago or who I think maybe I want to be tomorrow, that can all change. And that's not a reality that we have. So it's incredibly freeing when I finally heard that message. And again, it was about 1.5 years ago when it was like, you can think health and well-being is awesome. Okay. And you can think self-care is great, and you can meditate, and you can eat plant-based. You can do whatever you want, but you shouldn't judge other people for what they choose to do. You should just be you. And then you, my friend Heather, were the one that taught me to know my vision, to know my focus, but not be attached to the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So I can just be my little lighthouse, living my life the way I want, that I'm comfortable with, that I feel good about. And if others would like to connect, to have dialogue about that, great. And if they don't, great. It's
Mm-hmm.
not my role to force lead other people.
Yeah. So not being attached to the outcome is such a cool concept, isn't it?
You changed my life with that. I was like, wow, go for it. Go for the vision, know yourself, like yourself, regardless of what happens. And this is the fun part. And this is where I get into how it can be addictive, because I end up experiencing things that are so much greater than I ever even imagined.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't attached to an outcome that I thought I was in control of.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, I love that concept, Kristin. I could talk to you for just hours on this podcast, but instead, I am going to wrap it up by saying that I love your weekly video series that you've started. And if you have not caught Kristin's weekly video series, she actually does that on Facebook Live. Kristin, how do they connect with that? Is that on the Lee Health page as well?
It is. It's Wellbeing Wednesday. And for the time being, it will not be live, just because we're not connecting our employees to be able to live stream that from the marketing center. So each Wednesday, I'll be recording a wellness video, and then that will go ahead and be uploaded on the Lee Health Facebook page.
Okay, well, those are great. And you've been getting so much engagement. And so if you haven't seen Kristin yet, on that, what do you call it, Wednesday?
Wellbeing Wednesday.
I love it. I love it. Definitely catch her there. And I will just, you and I, Kristin, both can continue to add different resources to this particular thread. Okay. And we encourage you to share as well. If you've got some resources that you think are valuable, that really help people to continue this practice of health and well-being, that would be awesome. So please share it. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it as well. And Kristin, I appreciate you so much. I thank you for being with me today. I thank you for being my friend, and for doing all that you're doing for the community, and especially for our healthcare workers there in Lee County. So thank you. Anything else that you want to share before we hang up here?
Just my gratitude for your beautiful leadership and light in friendship, and to all that experienced this podcast. And congratulations for being plugged in with Heather, and please take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Kristin. You all have an awesome day. Stay healthy, and Kristin, we'll talk soon.
Thanks.